Should be on, if you want to check it on your computer,
Okay, yeah.
Mayor.
Yeah,
It's late, so I can,
yeah. You want me to go check it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is the gate open?
Yes,
Okay.
Denny said it's open, so.
Oh, yeah, it's working. Let me text Mr. Jordan to see where he's at.
Yeah, these are our main speakers, so. Ray, do you have anything in particular?
Well, it depends on what Mr. Jordan says.
Oh, okay,
What he-
just go with him. Go ahead.
I mean, what I have is just more inquiries.
Okay.
Than any, nothing to present per se.
Okay. You have anything? Or
no,
Just-
I was just a general question I had, and I don't think there's an answer for it.
Okay.
There he is.
There he is, right
You're
here.
not gonna,
Donnie's here.
so you don't think there's an answer for it?
What?
You said you have a general question?
It's just a generic question, yes.
Oh, okay.
You want him to speak from down there, or can he come up
Yeah, you want him to come up here, that's fine.
That's-
No, I enjoy saying, I've been sitting for a long time. I'll
Okay,
stay.
that's up to
Tom,
you.
is that on and loud enough? Let's see if it. That's good.
You
want
need
me
to get it up high so everyone can hear you.
Oh, I'll figure that out.
Does Tom want to come up here and sit?
No, no, I've been sitting all day. I'm
Stand up.
happy to.
There you go.
We got no, so it's on your computer,
That way
Mayor?
if you break into a rock song, you can.
That's okay.
The camera just
I
catches
highly
the
doubt
fact.
that.
Like
Then
if you walk
you should not want that.
Walk around with a mic.
So it's on your computer, you're getting
Yes.
volume and everything?
Yes, I was getting volume, I was getting everything.
Great, okay, because I've
Okay.
got, I got one viewer now.
And if
Or
you like
maybe that
the
was
Who,
you.
you can throw the mic at the crowd or whatever, like the Who used to do. Right, Denny? Denny remembers the Who. They were a little radical. Who?
Yeah.
Who's on first?
What's on?
Oh,
I don't know. Third base. Oh, okay. Are we ready? Okay.
believe so.
We're going to call to order the meeting of Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. The meeting is starting at 5:34 according to that clock. The meeting is being live streamed, and in attendance we have Councilman Mary Brenner Miller and Councilman Ray Whedon, who are both on the committee, and also in attendance is our mayor, Mr. Don Coldegraff, and also we have in attendance Councilman Brian Spitznagel, and our speaker will be Mr. Tom Jordan, who's already at the microphone. I guess he's ready to go. So I guess go ahead and start with you, Tom. He's going to give us an update on our economic development.
Good evening, everyone. I wish we were outside. It's beautiful. It's warm out there. There are, I know, I'll start out with the one that everyone always asks about, of course, the Ford plant. The Ford plant, we have not heard back from the application made to the state for the $10 million to help with the abatement of it. I do have a better understanding of what they applied for. They supplied a banker's box with a stack of paper this high. I went through a small portion of it before I turned it over to the environmental consultant. The village has retained its own environmental consultant to review the application to better understand the issues involved with that site. Manick & Smith has done work for the village in the past, and they are been hired and they are reviewing that application. In addition, I've asked them to electronically take that paper and have it scanned, and so it's a readable document that I'll be able to peruse at my whatever I have the opportunity. There are parts of it where it showed some of the proposed plans for the site. Basically, they told the site, the state of Ohio, that they want to build, there is over 1 million square foot there now, and they actually want to do that or more space, and that they want to take down the entire above ground structures at the site. And then when they take down the structures themselves, they have asbestos in them, that would be abated before demolition, and then also haul and remove all of the material from the site. So basically, they're asking for assistance to do all that. When you disturb, some of the ground has been tested and found to be contaminated, as we talked about before. If they don't touch it or take down a building, it doesn't cause any exposure. So what they're telling the state, in order to make the site developable, they need to disturb these areas, and that as a result they need extra money to do the abatement. So essentially that is encapsulated what's in the stack of documents, but in a much more detailed way, and includes all of the prior environmental assessment work that Ford performed. So they know the extent of the issues there. There is an area on the corner of the property that actually you all would readily recognize on Alexander and Northfield, which is the parking lot. That parking lot was designed for thousands of employees to park there, and had an internal shuttle bus to bring it back to the plant. Fortunately, that area really had no contamination that's known. So they could do a development on the corner, which is actually one of the nicest locations at the site, and avoid any of the environmental issues. So one of the development plans that they're discussing is to do exactly that, is to work on the remediation and demo the plant as you know it, and then build something new at the corner. So when they're engaging with you see all those for sale and for lease signs or available signs that are up there with prospects, that's an indication of what if you want something new and right away, you could go to the corner. If you wanted to build next year, we hope that the $10 million grant comes in and we use this summer to take down the site and get it ready, and then you could build in those other sites at a later time. So they actually do have sites available even before that environmental remediation has been completed. Obviously, we're engaging with them about the application and also about any prospects they have. And they've only owned the site since 12/28. We're now at just past April 1st here. They've had a couple of serious bites, and we've been engaged with them about that. So we're waiting for one of those to take it to the next step, and we'll share that with council if they're asking for incentives. Right now, we're just being poised, ready to finish that environmental review of the application. We want to be able to put council in a position that they don't give you $10 million for nothing. The city will have to make a statement. The village will have to make a statement to the state of Ohio that you're accepting and partnering with a private developer to do what's contained in that application. So I want council to be in a position, by using an outside professional, that we support that by being aware of what's contained in that application. We're working on that, and then on the prospects, we'll continue to work with them. There is a very sophisticated, you read in the newspaper, and you should know that some of your tax dollars are at work, is that Team Neo. Some of you may have heard of Team Neo. They do large site attractions, and that's what's going on over there. Anybody of a certain size, usually it's 10 acres or better, usually it's 5 million or better, usually it's employment over 25 people. Team Neo is typically involved. Anyone on a national search, like if you have a national company, you read articles about national companies looking for sites, Team Neo is the one that represents Northeast Ohio on large site attraction. They help market the site and are helpful, certainly for the village, to market that site. You have a large site, it's attracting large entities, and Team Neo is in a position to help you. They don't get involved unless it's a very significant site. So they're helping marketing it, and they'll be helpful. That's really all I can say at this point about the Ford plant. There are two other projects. I actually was trying to get an update on the way over on your Crick Road property. The village has a foreclosed property that we acquired, and we've got a series of grants that cleaned up the site, and we have to finish that project and get it available. The neighboring property owner, who is a chemical manufacturer, has expressed interest in it once that it's in a condition for sale. So I will go back, it's actually Manikin Smith, and see a different project manager though, and see where we're at with getting that lined up. One of the next steps is that I would need council's input on, and is we have to record a document against the deed, which will require council's authorization, indicating that you did perform the cleanup work and that you record, what was done on the site. But it's essentially a deed restriction. You can't build residential there anymore. Not that anybody would on that parkway, but that makes sure it doesn't happen for all time. That, I believe, is the next step after we get the EPA to sign off that the cleanup is complete, which hasn't happened yet. The battery plant at the corner of Northfield and Alexander, your service director, who I noticed is here tonight, has been chasing them around about the condition of the property, which has led them to me. And there is public money available to clean up former gas station sites, which that was originally before the battery use. And I spoke to him about it, and actually he does have an environmental consultant of his own, who I also spoke to, and he has to decide what his next step is. One would be he could fix up that place and become code compliant and make it look better. That's one choice. He indicates that he has a larger development plan for the site. I haven't seen it. But if he does, he should knock it down. If he knocks it down, it triggers the environmental cleanup. So that's what he has to decide, whether to fix up the site or take it down. If he does pursue it, I did indicate there is public money available, and he said he'd get back to me along with his environmental consultant. That's what's happening in those two sectors. Those are three very specific projects. The mayor and I have been corresponding on a semi-daily basis about there are various set of grants that all of a sudden had deadlines within days. That actually I've been happily passing along to the city engineer to fill out. But some of them, there's somewhat of a strategy. What's happening now is that you've heard a lot about ARPA money. The federal government has made available to local governments money. You have, I'm sure you've had your own discussions about how you would spend your own, but the county and the state are spending it, and they're finally setting up programs that cities and counties could apply for. In addition, the federal appropriation process has started again. Back to the ARPA money is that the mayor, under the state biennium capital request, did submit monies for the park. And then we have that's the biennium. We're waiting a word. Many of you have probably read that the county is making ARPA money available to the city. We're waiting to hear back from Jack Schron, the council representative for this area, about what will be the application process for that and how much money will be made available to the village. And then that's the county, the state, and then the federal. The federal government, their appropriation requests are just coming out, the forms. And basically, I believe the village's strategy on that one is to follow the process to do Northfield Road, make improvements along Northfield Road to make it more pedestrian friendly and safer for the public. So Once those, they all popped up in the last 30 days, both the application forms and what the parameters were. But my impression is that these are all being derived from the ARPA funds being made available. So that's the grant-making thing. The other thing is on, just talk about economic development in general. We went through 2 years of the COVID-19 and the fallout from it. The fallout basically is that retail is severely contracted. It doesn't affect this village that much, but it's leading towards, most people are buying their products and goods online to allow warehouse distribution, which plays into a lot of interest to the Ford plant. The other thing is that there's going to be more, the industries were used to having products made overseas and shipped here. Both the electric car industry and other industries are now seeing the value of shortening up the supply chain by having these plants that manufacture closer to the United States and in the United States. So actually one of the interested parties in the Ford plant are a national search for batteries that are made here in the United States. So that industry is actually working in the village's favor by bringing a lot of manufacturing. Cleveland is within 500 miles of 70% of the U.S. population. We also don't have the real estate market that New York, Philadelphia, and the DC areas have relative to how much it is to cost to distribute from those areas. So that was our strength years ago. We used to manufacture products in the United States, and especially in this area, and ship it out from here. So that is actually coming back, and I think that's a very good thing. So it will, all of the plans that I'm seeing on the Ford site are all in that vein. Advanced manufacturing, warehouse distribution, and also anything related to the emerging electric car industry. The other thing about cars and manufacturing is that while a number of the plants are overseas, the people buy cars now for the Bluetooth or the advanced mechanics that are in, and those are typically added on in the United States. So those products have to come from somewhere in the United States. So that industry is helping us. The mayor and I appreciate the service director's thing, is that that industrial area you have there was suppliers all to the Ford plant. That's what it was built for. And over the years they left and other people filled in that space. There were some longtime manufacturers there unrelated to the auto industry. But that's what is likely to come back, is what I just previously outlined. We just need to make sure that the roadway is in good repair, that people want to, if someone's going to build a multi-million-dollar facility, they aren't locating it next to a dump. And that's what we got to make it look like, that it's ready for that. So, as we move forward, we got to make sure that the industrial park looks good. People won't invest if they don't. And that's in general some of the stuff that's going on. I don't want to take you away from, make it too long this evening. Do any of you have any specific questions?
Yeah, I do. Can you, Mr. Jordan, can you go back over a little bit over the, when you were talking about the grant applications, ARPA, you mentioned a couple of different funds, and you mentioned two things that perked my ears was Route 8 becoming more pedestrian friendly. Yes. And you mentioned something about parks.
Right. Well, there are two specific ones. Sure.
Tom, you can talk, because I'll read, I can give I was going to do it in a COW meeting, because like Tom said, but I can do it here too, and then we can do it again about what we did, our grant application for the sidewalk. But go ahead, Tom, you expound on.
Just real quickly was that I'll explain really more how he got there, and then he could give you more of the details of the application. Was that only roads that are in the federal system are eligible for a federal appropriation. And currently, that term federal appropriation, it comes up annually. Your local representative has to sponsor it. You submit it to his office, and typically they're road projects. I will tell you 70% of them are. Others are specialities. So in this instance, the mayor has made the engineer aware of issues that he'd like resolved along Northfield Road, and he came up with this project. I take no credit for it other than just understanding what the process is. There was a second question.
You mentioned parks.
Parks, I have submitted, as did this mayor, anything to improve your park. Typically, the state and the county are good sources of funds to improve your parks. So when one became available, the mayor had a project that he wanted to do there.
That was the one Brian put forward. He was relating to the one Brian put forward.
So I thought that was ARPA related.
Stu,
That one actually is...
this was the one from Senator Dole.
Yes, and that, every 2 years, the state has a capital budget, and they ask the cities to submit it. And I think it's, and people typically submit parks.
Right, I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's what they responded to. No, unfortunately, sometimes they only send out the notice of the form, and you have 2 weeks to come up with it.
Right.
Yeah, I
Sure.
did have some other questions, and then I'll pause and come back.
Don't tell you the specifics, I'll just tell you how the program works.
Okay. So the other question I had was related to the battery shop property. I think you said the building is disturbed, and then the environmental cleanup piece will definitely be triggered.
Yes.
Even if they don't go below surface, if they just take the building down?
Well, the typical building code requires that you remove the foundations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And actually, I think that'll trigger it. You could take the building down and then pause, but what they really want is a no further action letter. That makes it developable. To resolve the issues with the village on code compliance, they could just take the building down. But what I told them is that will make you ineligible for remediation funds. If you take money from the government, they dictate the scope of the work, and that scope will always include cleaning up the site.
I have one more question related to that property. I don't know, this might be for you, Mayor, and that's the Walton Hills presence on that corner. Is that tied to the ownership, or do we have an easement?
Tom, one thing, Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, you didn't touch base on, and I think this is what Ray's talking about. You're talking about Smith and Obie?
No.
No.
Talking about
The
where
signs.
The battery across
On
the
the battery
street.
property. Still on
Yes,
battery.
we entered into an easement with
Yes.
them there too.
So
that transferred with the new ownership was?
That,
Yes, it should.
Tom might have-
But
Yeah,
are you
it's
worried
in an
about its
easement.
current
Yeah,
condition? Do you want something
No,
improved?
I'm
okay.
not concerned. I'm concerned about whether or not we.
Oh, no,
maintain that.
I hope they did. I
even though
assume
it
they did.
transferred ownership.
Yeah.
I know on Smith Obie, we did retain one. I was more involved in that project. So in the future, if the city wants to do something on the corner, they can.
I thought it was too.
But that particular improvement, I think dates back a while. So I'm not that familiar with how it was entered into, but I assume they did. The engineer, I know him, I believe he would have insisted on it. Essentially, it's a right-of-way. Anything else?
Well, I'll pause.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. One was the size of that property on where the battery,
Yes.
what's the, is
It's
that,
less than an acre. It might be less than a half acre. I know Smith Obie was less than a half acre, and I always felt like it was a mirror property. I could get you that. I have that information. I just I don't recall. And I think you're asking that question because you're like, how large a development could he do there anyways? So,
Exactly.
yeah, I'll have to get back. So, my interaction with the owner was that Rob is chasing him about the condition of the property. So his response, I think what he wanted the village to do was put up with the current condition and, you know, I will build you this elaborate thing sometime in the future. So I said, no, you know, you gotta comply with the city code, and if you do it right, I'll help you with some government money. That was the reply.
Well, if he takes that building down, if it's, that gas station was there 65 years or longer.
It was.
If they take that building down, like they did the golf station on Catty Corner from this building, it was on the corner, they not only had to remove the foundation, but they had to dig
The tanks.
the tanks. But they
I
had to-
believe, I did see an environmental report, and I do believe that they took they may have taken the tanks out. It actually wasn't a gas, it's been not a gas station since 1970, I think.
Yeah, it's been gone a long while.
Yeah, I think the tanks in this case might be gone. I do know the tank servicing areas are the areas they want investigated to see if there's any contamination there. And that's part of what he has to comply with.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Anything new on Smith and Obie? Are they moving forward?
They do. I mean, I'm hearing the right grumbling was that they called to make sure about that easement, ironically. They asked the city, do you want more land from us to do a sign? I said, no, we retained what we needed. And they were under design for the expansion, was what it was. I could tell by the quality of the questions that they were trying to figure out what they could fit there, how big an addition could they do. I wish they had started the design earlier. They're under contract with us to get it built this year. So I anticipate that they will be under construction this year. Whether they'll finish it or not remains to be seen. But it's only April, and it depends on what they're doing. You know, with money, all things are possible. You know, if you spend enough money, but you could build it in a month if you throw a lot of money at it. But I would have been more comfortable if they had submitted to the Planning Commission by now. I haven't. There is no submission yet. So.
Well, I just know this has been going on at least 3 or 4 years.
No. Well, they do own the property. There's a
Right.
reversionary ability to take back the property if they don't build, and there's an abatement agreement that will go defunct if they don't build this year. So I think they will. And I believe you know the company. I think it's more that they're just busy making money
Yes.
and that they need the addition, but they're so busy keeping up with the demand for their services that this new construction project is
Almost an afterthought. They know they need it, but
yeah, that industry is under a lot of pressure.
just wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if they do need an extension, we may consider it, but right now they're required to build this year.
Okay. That was all.
All 3 corners would be, there's a
Developed.
possibility to see some major improvements there, which would be very attractive. I'd like to see the 8-foot fence with the barbed wire down, and we tell that to the Ford people. They said if they're in demo stage, they'll probably keep it up, but after that, they'd get rid of it. Smith Obie, I think, will be under construction. It's actually the best looking of the 3. And then the battery station, if he needs to take it down, we'll see what he does. I think the best you could hope for that is just they take it down, and then we'll wait and see. A lot of the smaller retail, which is really what would go there, if I was him, I'd wait a while to see what happens at Ford, because it'll change the dynamic there so dramatically.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Tom, I know we've had conversations about, and I'm afraid you've had conversations too, about about it with Mr. Jordan. Our house, kind of share a little bit, you know, it's
Yeah.
just what we think
Yeah.
they're doing and why, and just kind of, I know it's kind of assuming, but just your thoughts on our house.
Yeah, yeah,
and
you know,
what could
I
happen
do, and
there.
our house is partly owned by, well, it's not, that is a separate entity, and our house is using the facility still. They have offices still upstairs, and it's our understanding they are reporting to the village some income generated there. I believe there's 3 owners, and one of them is the founder of our house. The other are 2 private partners. And that our house had a long-term lease on the facility that had years left on it after they moved. So the partnership was still receiving income from our house. Then, oddly enough, you know, because of the pandemic, they had to space out. And they needed more area beyond the mega place they built down the road. So they ended up staying there. So I think they are under less pressure. You would think that that giant facility, why would anybody hold on to it? Is because of our house is still paying the freight to keep it open there. I also think it's a good strategy because, again, wait to see what happens across the street at Ford and go from there. So I wouldn't sell it if I was them, and I'd hold on to it a little longer and then possibly lease it out. So there's some income stream with our house, and that's what's keeping them there.
Well, we had talked about the size of the property at Ford being bigger than the size of the property in Twinsburg.
Yeah, I know actually the economic development director there just retired, and I knew him for a long time. I think in earlier conversations I've had with this council that I think this site is more comparable to Twinsburg than it is to Brook Park. But because the partnership bought both at the same time, people keep making comparisons. But I think it's more closely related to the Twinsburg plant. It does. Twinsburg boasts that they have more people working there than they did under, Chrysler. But I don't. From my knowledge of what is out there, I still think they would like Chrysler back.
Well, my point was that I don't think people really have a grasp yet what this project is.
Could be, yes.
And could be. And it probably, if you haven't, if you get a chance to drive out there, and I would suggest on a Saturday or a Sunday, and to drive through that, it's a regular street. You can drive down and it exits back out, and you can see the buildings and what's been put on that property. And I think it'll, first of all, if you haven't seen it, it'll open your eyes, and I think it'll give you more of a perspective of what this could be.
Right, and I will say, and I'll pass on the comment, they have made one of the partners of the development team is the owner at Twinsburg. That's the DiGeronimo's. I don't believe that both Weston and Skinnell are out there. But anyways, DiGeronimo was the lead, and they indicated that they feel the site is superior. It's sort of like a mom picking between their 2 children, but they did indicate that they thought this was a better site than Twinsburg. So, and they expected it to be more productive. So, I thought that was a good sign when the owner was willing to say that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Whedon.
Just a comment on the Twinsburg site. Matter of fact, I rode through there on Saturday and on my bike, and I'm taking a look there. It actually looks, when you look at the amount of buildings there with the different distributors, It actually looks larger than this
Yeah,
standard.
yeah, I know. I think you're right. I think well, it's because of that big parking lot on the corner here, and the building is so far set back that you don't realize how big it is, how the depth of the property. It just sort of tapers off towards the railway.
Okay. I had another question for you, and that's, as you talked about our house property and the battery, and as well as the Ford site itself being redeveloped at some point, and may be an exciting time for us. The impact on the other parcels that are maybe open or vacant in the village. I know there's another parcel on Route 8, I don't remember what used to be there. There's no sign there. There's another one or two over in the industrial area that looks.
Well, there's more than a couple back there, yeah. Yeah.
And then finally, some buildable land over on Young Road, both at the corner of Young and Tower and the corner of Young and Hannon Parkway. Any inklings of what's, especially those undeveloped properties that have for sale signs?
Yes. The only thing we could do is just list them as sites available and assist in their marketing. I will tell you from my interactions with when they are up against other sites, is that if I'm building, we had a family business in the park, and the third generation wanted to make a large investment, but they didn't want to make a large investment in the park because the neighboring buildings did not match the value they were investing, is the nicest way of putting it. And so, we got to be more diligent with code enforcement over there. The impact of the Ford plant has a lot to do with some of the retail sites. It definitely will have an impact on retail sites that are within a 2-mile radius of it. If you have hundreds of people now that you're putting there, that will need to someplace to go in the morning and someplace at lunch, that'll change, what's out here, from a dormitory suburb to really having thousands of workers possibly over there. So that would be, but then we have had interest in some of the sites that you talked about with people with alternative energy and suppliers, Amazon, energy producers, or places to store trucks even that have been interested. I think what the city could do on the short term is just do code enforcement back there, get the owners to maintain their property, and then hopefully that when someone makes a large investment over here, that spurs, success builds on success, and hopefully that's what will happen here.
Well, and a quick follow-up on the marketing aspect, especially with the Ford redevelopment, is there,
Right.
Do we have a general philosophy or types of industry that we're marketing to?
Well, I could give you what in a practical sense, what happens is that the developer of the site will show a block concept plan, which will block out areas of that 111-acre site, showing basically I believe, large industrial buildings. And they will say you could either own or rent one of these large sites, and they believe those are what the current, when you talk about marketing is usually in response to what the private market's demanding. So the private market's demanding large industrial space right now. And so they have developed a plan that meets the current need, and they will show a lot of large concept buildings on that site. So that's how they market it. A long time ago, the village looked into a single user doing, one large plant there. That, is still a possibility, but it always was a small chance. It's going to be multi-tenanted, even, let's just say you build a 200,000 square foot industrial building in there on the corner, which I think is very possible. They're likely to have at least 2 or 3 users in it. And that is a very likely outcome. Multi-tenanted industrial and light manufacturing, advanced manufacturing is very likely there. And I think that is really what the market is demanding. You have good access to transportation, and that's, for shipping and receiving. So, I think that's what you'll see. Did I answer your question?
Yes. So I was kind of more concerned about those other parcels.
I know.
How does
I know.
the marketing tie in with those in terms of with the
Yeah.
bigger vision?
The individual brokers on those properties, I mean, it's typically going to be who would buy those is typically a renter in the neighboring area. He's renting, he's a small manufacturer. Now he wants to build his own place. And and he feels it's a safe investment for at least $1 million, and if not 3 or 4 on some of those smaller sites. So, we're up against Glen Willow and other sites in the area where, that's all new construction. The first part of my presentation was about every one of your developments has environmental issues on them, and people don't want to have the patience to go through that. Government has the patience on one of their own properties, that's what I'm doing, but a lot of other people don't. So anything we could assist on remediating any of those properties, that's a role for government as well.
Thank you.
Well, just kind of for reference, the first time that we looked at the Crick Road building you were talking about was, the mayor and I took a ride up there and looked at that. It was 2018. So
Had we owned it then? I don't know if we owned it then. I think
We
it
were
was,
starting to go.
it started the foreclosure
Or just got it
process.
through the land bank or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Takes a while.
things move slow.
Well, we're also not using the village's money. We got the building for free, building and land for free. Everything we've done
But
on it has been through
But it
grants.
took time.
And when you do it that way, it takes time.
It takes
yeah.
time.
If you guys had 10 million, not 10 million, if you had $200,000 even to spend and we, just to blow on the building, we could have gotten it down, remediated
Right.
it, gone by now, yeah.
But we didn't, so.
No, we're just using grants as it moves along, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Tom,
Mr.
can
Mayor.
you kind of talk about, because I think it's one of those things we haven't, those are grants we applied for and what it would have cost us to so far clean that property up that the EPA has done for us through grants.
At least 150, if not better. At the end, it'll probably approach $250,000. Because we still got to get the building down. We got,
Right.
after we clean it up, then it'll be safe to take it down, disturb the ground, and get it out of there. I mean, we looked at one plan just to take the above-ground areas down, so. Hopefully, people say, what is luck? Luck is where opportunity meets preparation. And if we get the building down and it's cleaned up and someone comes along and it's ready, that's where you say you get lucky and that we found someone for the site. But it took a number of years of preparation to get there. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, did you want me just to touch base, Jennifer, I don't know if you were in yet or whatever, but it came up about the sidewalk along Northfield Road. I know in our council meeting and events that have happened recently, we've all, even before that, have had concern about that sidewalk. And we have talked, myself and Mr. Jordan, with the owners of, the new owners of the former Ford plant. But also, as Tom said in earlier, Congressman Joyce's office is accepting grant funding applications for the Federal Community Project Funding, CPF program. And this kind of just all happened in the last week or so. So I'll read this letter into record in the COW meeting, unless you want me to read it here. I guess we're all here, I guess might as well. And I'll read it in the COW in case people, but just to give you an idea, and I think it's really good, and I hope we get it. And also, I will have some conversations with, downstate there. So this is what Joe sent me today, and just kind of give you an idea. Congressman Dave Joyce's office is accepting grant funding applications for the Federal Community Project Funding, CPF program. The village has submitted a grant application for 100% funding for the proposed Northfield Road Sidewalk project. This project would be to install a new sidewalk along the east side of Northfield Road between the Northfield Bridge and the MGM Casino. The project, if funded, would connect the existing sidewalk at the bridge to the casino property, the future Ford redevelopment, and many other industrial properties. This improvement would provide safe pedestrian access for employees to access their place of work and public transportation. This is especially important since there have been multiple pedestrian-involved accidents along this corridor in recent years. Given the lack of the existing right-of-way or tree lawn space along Northfield Road, such a sidewalk would need to be constructed just outside of the current village right-of-way. Such a sidewalk would be approximately 6,600 feet in length, which is 1.25 miles.
It's a long sidewalk.
The overall project cost is estimated to be $933,000. This includes not only the physical construction of a new sidewalk, but also all the costs and services involved to acquire the necessary right-of-way from the property owners along the length of the east side of the Northfield Road. And that's applying for a grant for 100% funding. So I was...
And I do want to say, because some of the public may not realize, and I said it earlier, well, why don't they apply to do my sidewalk or repair my road in front of my house? Those are subdivision, those are the village's responsibility. You have to be on the federal system, it has to be on a state or county road for it to be eligible for that particular grant program. So people are like, hey, why don't you spend $1 million on the streets in my neighborhood? It's because this particular program only will fund those projects. That's why it's there. And as you can see, it's not a small problem. Some people, as soon as they hear the word sidewalk, they think it's a very small issue. That's one long, big sidewalk, So we'll hopefully see what happens at the federal level. They do like these projects. I feel the sidewalk projects. There's a push in a lot of areas to try to do a complete streets program, which is a lot of these streets were designed before people required sidewalks or provided, alternative methods of getting to and from work. When that plant was built, everyone drove there. That was the whole idea. Buy a Ford and drive to my plant. So, now we're looking for something else.
And the important part, which we really want to drive home, which us as council has discussed in the administration and Mr. Jordan and all of us, is the safety of it. There's a lot there, and so it's kind of nice. When this came available, it really hit us to address, that it just came at a good time. We were putting that, a lot of that on the redevelopment of the former Ford plant, but that doesn't address the whole issue.
Right. No.
You get past the Ford plant, which some employees do, you see people walking from the bridge, from our property line towards MGM. So I'm really hope we get this grant, and I'm really thankful that we got it together and got it submitted in time and stuff. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mayor, do you know, or Tom, do you know, just by chance, or if Joe Gelati said, what the turnaround time is in hearing about these?
This is a good question. It's, they have their own timeline. It's the federal government.
That says it all.
So it's part of their budget process. I will say I just had a conversation on another project about this. There's sort of three ways you could get funded. Now that he did that preliminary engineering, we'll continue to apply to other funds for it. That's typically what happens. And so it's not just dependent on whether that grant makes it through. As the mayor knows, on the park project, we have these park projects we keep applying for. Eventually, they'll get funded. This one, the federal appropriation process, i.e. earmarks, what they referred to as earmarks, they weren't allowed for a long time. It took a 10-year hiatus or better. They're now back in place. Whether they will be in the next Congress or not, I don't know. That thing, we're in April. They have to the end of the year, in my estimation, whether or not they will do another, what's called another bill that appropriates money for public infrastructure. And they got now to the end of the year to pass it. If it doesn't, then whether or not the new Congress will continue with the earmark process, I don't know. But that particular project, I think, will probably keep surfacing, and you just keep applying. The other thing is the federal government gives Northeast Ohio about $30 million plus every year to spend through what is called our Regional Transportation Authority, NOACA, and that project will be eligible for their funds in the future. It's still federal projects, but it'll go down to 80-20 as soon as you do that. That grant's asking for all of it, and only that earmark process would ever pay for all of it. The rest are all 80-20. And the 20% of $1 million is a significant amount of money. So you'll have a decision on your hand whether or not you want to do that or not. Or shorten up the project, which is something that could happen.
You make a real narrow sidewalk.
Or cut it off is what unfortunately happens. So I think that's, did I answer your question? Now to the end of the year, I think is the only way that particular grant thing, but I think it'll probably get funded through one of the other projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, I have just hypothetical. If let's say the 80-20, say Ford, well, the project at, in front of the Ford plant, if they would.
Yes, I know, and we thought about that.
And then,
but
and also MGM, because.
Yeah, I know, and they could afford it. What will happen is that, what typically would happen is that, let's just say you got the award. And what he points out is there's not enough right-of-way. You'd always have to buy from the private people to buy the land. They have an option of donating it in exchange too, which could happen. If they either donate or they offer to construct the sidewalk as they build their buildings, which is what will happen if they don't. It could knock off some of the money. But I could tell you that Northfield Road, all what we do is by enhance the street lights, we enhance the traffic lights, we'll enhance the connections, we'll use part of it across the street. That appropriation, it'll read like 2 lines in the federal budget. It'll say to make improvements from the bridge essentially to the boundary of the city. We could use it on both sides. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We'll find a home for the rest of it if one of the major stakeholders said, I'll take care of this portion. And we will. In the future site plans, we will require them to do it. But these grant funds, Northfield Road could easily take in $1 million worth of improvements on both sides. So that's what would happen. I've seen it happen. They also say hold off because we're going to have heavy machinery coming in here and we don't want a sidewalk there for a while. That could happen. Or our site is changing. We want to integrate with the sidewalk better, move it well away from the, like for the example, the corner. you know, they might, you know, move it in from that corner a little bit more. You know, so anyways, a lot could happen.
Yeah.
But if we save money and they want to do part of it, or tell us to wait, as I indicated, that there's plenty of sections of sidewalk or street improvements that $1 million could swallow up in that section. You know, do you know how moving a pole, you know, that's part of your issues out there? You know, we could move a couple poles. Some of the improvements that have gone on over the last few years have been, as soon as we got into it, we realized we couldn't move the poles, so we try to make the best out of it. But if we had a lot of money, we'd probably start moving those poles.
No one said the sidewalk had to be straight.
That's more feet.
I will tell you, a lot of architects would argue that it should never be straight. So,
Anybody else, anything?
No, sir.
Oh, yeah, well, I think we're, Mr. Whedon? Nothing? You good?
Yeah, I had to, Mr. Chairman, I did have one more question.
Yep,
since we
go
said-
ahead, go ahead.
Well, that's on the, I don't know if this is for you, Mayor, or for you. Any updates on the CIC or how that, are we still, how does that tie into any of this?
Well, I'll just, for my brief remarks, the mayor, I think, might have some more recent updates. I really wasn't a great deal involved in the community incorporated. I have been participating with them in other cities, but it was developed fairly recently here, and the idea was that there are some things that the CDC could do that the village can't do. You're a remarkably small village to have one. Usually they're the typical ones that are like neighborhood development corporations, like in Bel Air Puritas or, you know, other areas of the city of Cleveland. I think we're investigating maybe trying to do an inactive status on it. The only thing is that they have an asset. We were trying to make sure there's a piece of land that was put in the name of the CIC, and because it has an asset, I think we got to figure out what to do with that asset. It's just like a corporation. If you're going to dissolve it, you got to take care of the assets. So I personally don't see a need for it at this juncture.
Okay, so there's no CIC role in any of this
No.
property redevelopment or anything like that?
No. There, you know, the land bank is essentially a sub-government to you. There is, that the land is titled separately than the village. It's the village of Walton Hills Land Reutilization Program, as opposed to it being titled the village of Walton Hills, like the way this city hall is titled. Because it went through a foreclosure, it's titled separately. And the state provided a group of statutes that holds the village somewhat harmless from the stuff that is titled under the land bank. So you still could take in property through the land bank. The CIC was a little different. The CIC concept is that they title it, and then that land sale would in some way pay for the management of the CIC. But I don't see a current need for it. You know, everyone likes to have as many tools in the toolbox as you can. I have too many tools at home, but I still keep them sometimes. And I get the energy to do some more DIY projects, but, you know, same here. I mean, you can put it on inactive status if it makes sense, and sometime in the future you can. There was a concept on the CIC, I know, that I discussed with the prior law director here, that maybe Ford would donate the entire property to the CIC, and that definitely they would have a role then, and that they could possibly write it off. But Ford went a different direction, and they wanted to sell it for what it was worth. So
We tried.
yeah, no, seriously, you did. So you know,
They didn't want to give it to us.
no, they didn't want to give it to us. I think in that case it had to do, again, they still have a continuing obligation over there. And they wanted a responsible entity to own the property and continue the remediation. Ford is still paying for stuff over there, past their ownership. any contamination under the ground that's there is still their responsibility.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
All right, have a good
I
night.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, you
Jordan.
too, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Right, Tom.
All right.
And do you have any other business? Anybody? We're good? We'll call for adjournment?
Yes, I call for adjournment.
You do?
Yes,
Second.
Gotta make a motion.
I make a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion. Make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And we'll call the meeting at,
Vote on your motion.
oh, we got to vote on the motion too?
That will help.
Yeah.
We didn't get another ones.
Oh, you did?
Sometimes we got to vote here.
Vote aye, yes.
Yes.
Mr., you don't have to vote.
Okay.
And that, now we're official
Okay.
at 6:32.
Okay.
And I will end the stream.
Because they are separate streams for the COW.
Should be.
Good.
And the